D'Anton Lynn has been hired by Penn State. New defensive coordinator. Talked about this. Talked a buyout battle video that was pretty good, and you guys watched it. We really appreciate you doing that. And that whole situation. Well, it turns out D'Anton Lynn has gone to Penn State now after a lot of wondering. I mean, it looked like Anthony Poindexter called a good bowl game there against Clemson, and there were some people, even myself, thinking, "Hey, if D'Anton Lynn doesn't work out, maybe you go with Poindexter. Could you figure something out there?" It looked very unlikely, but who knows? But we don't have to worry about that, as D'Anton Lynn is now the defensive coordinator for Penn State. We're bringing in our guy Chris to talk about it all. Chris, what was your reaction when you saw D'Anton Lynn to Penn State?
I liked it. The most important thing was getting it done before the portal, before January 2nd. It's huge. I think he's a pretty good defensive coordinator. I know just about everybody I see, like on the message boards, all of Nittany Nation seems to really be on board with him. They're very happy with it. And like I said, the most important to me, it was very important to get him in before the portal opened. Like right now, they're in the middle of negotiations with a lot of players, trying to keep certain players around. And having a defense coordinator certainly helps on the defensive side of the ball. Need a defensive line coach now, and unfortunately, we lost Barnes, but Deion Barnes, but I think D'Anton Lynn's a good young up and coming coach. I don't think he's perfect or great. I don't think he's Manny Diaz, but I do think he's a solid coach. So I was looking at some numbers. UCLA, when he was there, the year before he was at UCLA, they had the 87th ranked defense in the country. I didn't delve too deep into it. I don't know if that was scoring defense or total defense, but they had the 87th ranked defense in the country. When he took over, I saw that they then had the 10th ranked defense in the country. So that's quite an improvement. USC was a similar situation. They had, you couldn't get any worse than Alex Grinch. He was the worst defense coordinator I think I've ever seen. But in 2023, the year before D'Anton Lynn came, USC, they're giving up 34 points a game. I think it was like 121st in the country or something like that. It was pretty bad. Year one with D'Anton Lynn, he improved them. They went from 34 points a game given up to 24 points a game in 24. In 25, they gave up 22 points a game. He's so not perfect, but you also got to weigh what kind of talent did USC have on defense. They didn't have a lot of big time players. They're recruiting out of the world right now, but they just start recruiting big time. Not just start recruiting big time. I'm just talking these more recent classes. So, you got to weigh what kind of talent did he have to work with at USC compared to those numbers. So, good young up and coming coach. I just hope his style is an aggressive attacking style. I can't stand seeing little zone defenses where these big soft zones where receivers are just running into gaps. I know you can't play a man-to-man every single down and blitz three guys every down, but I do hope that he's aggressive up front, get some pressure on the quarterback. I hope, they're down in the red zone and Indiana has the ball on the 5-yard line. They're not playing 10 yards off the receivers like Jim Knowles did. And, I just hope he's an aggressive style of coach. I do remember last year seeing something where they asked him about his scheme, and he didn't really have a set scheme. He said basically he adjusts his scheme to whatever personnel he has, which makes sense. And I did read some stuff from USC insiders of why the defense wasn't even better this year. And they said that they're expecting a lot more from their defensive line. I guess they had some I don't know, defensive linemen that were supposed to be pretty good that let them down. But I mean, overall, I'm happy. Good young up and coming coach has improved defenses both places he went. Back at his alma mater. Hopefully he could recruit well, and we got him here just in time before the portal. So I'm happy with it, as is just about all of Nittany Nation from what I've seen.
Oh, for sure. And him coming in, former Penn State player and everything else. He's got the ties and everything. I mean, obviously that all works out and it's great. He spent some time in the NFL. Wasn't, it was like assistant coach work and stuff like that, but still spent some time in the NFL. And I think that is so valuable for a coordinator in college to spend some time in the NFL. Even if you're not a coordinator in the NFL, you kind of still see that operation. You see the professionalism. And I think it's more important now in today's age of college football than it ever was before to be able to see that professionalism, see the way that guys kind of operate. And I do think D'Anton Lynn brought some of that with him to UCLA and USC and was able to do that. I am hesitant to blame D'Anton Lynn for the defense not improving as much as people had hoped this year at USC because of Rob Ryan and the linebackers and kind of how that whole situation went. The linebackers did not improve this season. Yes, the defensive line that you pointed out, but I mean, those linebackers did not know where they were supposed to be at times, and that falls on the linebacker coach. And we saw at UCLA and USC the first season, the linebacker play was better. So I don't tend to think that is a D'Anton Lynn issue, but overall, did D'Anton Lynn do what Jim Knowles did with Ohio State? No. Did Ohio State have far better talent than USC and UCLA had? Yes. And at the end of the day, we also need to recognize when Jim Knowles did that at Ohio State, Ryan Day went through a complete transformation of who he was as a coach, and that started to happen that way. Lincoln Riley's not gone through that transformation. Now, I'm not sitting here crapping on Lincoln Riley at all, but I do think that Lincoln Riley is a coach that's very, very hard to have some of the best defenses in the nation for, just by the way he plays offense and kind of the way he utilizes his offense. Right. It doesn't always set up the defense well for success. Ryan Day has adjusted himself to set up his defense better for success, especially in the regular season. And we saw that not just last year, but this year as well. And so I think a lot of this is also going to depend on Matt Campbell and the kind of head coach he is. Is he going to be the kind of head coach that just kind of lets his offense run crazy and do whatever, Taylor Mauser and those guys? Or is he going to say, nope, we're going to play complementary football. We're going to set our defense up for success. Doesn't mean we're not going to be good on offense. Doesn't mean we're not going to be an attacking offense, but it does mean that we're not going to put our defense in bad situations where they get, exposed or anything like that. And I do think that Matt Campbell, while I don't think he's going to go the full Ryan Day route, I do think that Matt Campbell has shown that he is a more balanced head coach that is going to try and win with defense and not put his defense in bad situations.
Yeah. No, I think that's a valid point, because when you think of Lincoln Riley, it's just offense. I don't think Lincoln Riley knows anything about defense other than just trying to score 1 million points on a defense. He's just all offense. Where Ryan Day, even though Ryan Day came more from an offensive background, I'll never forget the story that this receiver coach, Zach Smith. Is it Zach Smith? Is that, yeah.
Yep.
But where, that first game with Oregon last season where they lost and Ryan Day went to Jim Knowles and said, you got to simplify things. So I do think Matt Campbell would be more like that style of Ryan Day, where if things aren't going well, that's your job as a head coach. I mean, that's what Terry Smith did. I mean, Terry Smith went to Jim Knowles. He demanded him simplify things a little more, and you saw a difference in the defense. He simplified things. He told him that he wanted to install some more aggressive style up front. Some more Manny Diaz. They called it like a prowler defense, like some more blitzing, and just simplified it. And that's what a head coach is supposed to do. There's always these debates on like this Penn State message board, it seems, about, the James Franklin medal in the offense. Should you bet? To me, you let your offense coordinator, defense coordinator, you let them do their thing. You're the head guy. You oversee it. You put your stamp of approval on it. If things are going good, fine. But if things aren't going well, as a head coach, you should medal. That is your job to medal. So Ryan Day going into Jim Knowles, and Jim Knowles, was sensitive to it, took it personal. But Ryan Day going to Jim Knowles saying your play sheet is way too big, everything's too complex, dumb it down a little bit. That's what a head coach is supposed to do. You got to be an alpha. You want an alpha as a head coach. And we definitely have one in Matt Campbell. So I think that's a good point. And to the point of the NFL connections, his father, I believe his father's Anthony Lynn, right? The former Chargers coach. I know he had, I don't know if that was a father and uncle, but I'm pretty sure that former Chargers coach was his father. So, coming from that kind of background, like you said, could only help. He's been a defense coordinator now for at least 3 years and been coaching for a while, and comes from a coaching background. And, he'll adjust with his personnel. No idea what the personnel is going to look like. This roster is going to be completely flipped upside down. It's going to be really interesting. So if you want to get into that part, we could talk about that too.
Yeah, sure. So let's talk about kind of the transfers and what we can expect. Take a break from defense for a second. We'll get back to defense, but let's talk about this Rocco Becht and Ethan Grunkemeyer situation. A lot of people vying for Ethan Grunkemeyer to be the starting quarterback next year. However, does look like all signs are pointing toward Rocco Becht coming to Penn State from Iowa State. I mean, you've said it to me, and I think it makes sense. If Rocco Becht comes, that most likely means Ethan Grunkemeyer is moving on. I would expect that to happen still, even, not even with, in addition to him having a good bowl game that can kind of propel you in the transfer portal, especially with some of these teams looking out and saying, hey, look, he started half the season or over half the season and ended on that really high note there against Clemson. Yes, I know Clemson didn't have a great year, but still it's a team with a lot of talent. He's able to end on it like that. I mean, let's just start there, Ethan Grunkemeyer, and then kind of get into Rocco Becht. If Rocco Becht does come, do you think it's for sure that Ethan Grunkemeyer would move on and enter the transfer portal and go elsewhere?
I wouldn't say for sure, but I think it's most likely. I would say 90% he's probably going to go. And I mean, to me it's about a done deal. There's enough reporting. I think Pete Nakos reported on it recently that Rocco Becht is heavily leaning going to Penn State, and Rocco Becht is going to be the starting quarterback at Penn State, all likelihood. I don't see how Ethan Grunkemeyer, especially after the year, I know it was only a half a year, but the talent he has, does he really want to go back to sitting on a bench going into his third year, in college? And after the game, somebody asked him about his future, and he said he's not sure. Something along the line, I'm not quoting it exactly, but something along the lines that, he has to sit and talk to his family and his agent. And when, whenever you bring up an agent, I got to sit, talk with my family, my agent, explore some options, go from there. And he said, I do want to, surprisingly, he said he hasn't had a chance to sit down with Matt Campbell and have a one-on-one with Matt Campbell yet, which was kind of telling. But I just don't see any way he stays unless they just offer him tremendous amount of NIL, which I just don't see where he would stay as a backup when he could go get NIL somewhere else and be a starter. I preferably would rather, I like Rocco Becht a lot. There's a lot of Rocco Becht's game that reminds me of Trace McSorley, but I would prefer to go with Grunkemeyer. I have followed Ethan Grunkemeyer from his junior year in high school, and I've watched him progress, and he's been super impressive. This kid has a ton of talent. He has a ton of talent. His mechanics are flawless. At any camp he's been to, the Elite 11, the regional camps, he did great at he's one of the top quarterbacks at the Elite 11, the final camp. And Charles Powers, even the on 3, head scout guy, he was super impressed by him. Flawless mechanics, big arm, pretty accurate. He gets the ball out. You put him in an offense with some decent receivers and a little protection, and the kid will absolutely pick you apart. He's a big time talent. Not a good runner. I don't think he's that good of a runner. That's where Rocco Becht, the upside to Rocco Becht comes in. I think Grunkemeyer has more arm talent, and it's not even close. And then with Grunkemeyer, you would have him here for at least, you wouldn't have to worry about a quarterback for 2027. He would be here most likely for 2027 as well. The upside to Grunkemeyer, better arm talent, better overall passer. The upside to Rocco Becht, knows the offense, better athlete, could extend the plays. The one knock on Rocco Becht, though, is accuracy's not exactly a strong suit. He has a career completion percentage of 60%. Even in 2024, when they had two receivers go over 1,100 yards in Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel, and even with those great receivers, he only threw for 59%. But you watch his game, and there's a lot of Trace McSorley. Like he's really good. He's just a gamer. He's just like instant. You know, some of these guys come in and it's just like instant offense, like no hesitation to his game. And when you watch him, that's what you get. You know, he could escape pressure. He could extend plays. He could get the ball out quick. You know, he knows the offense. It's one of those things where it's just going to come in and click. So, you know, I'm fine with Becht at quarterback. I would just, the fact that your Grunkemeyer would be here for another at least 2 years, maybe even 3, the fact and the tremendous amount of arm talent he has, I would rather go with D'Anton Grunkemeyer, but it's not going to happen. It's going to be Rocco Becht. And I would like to note that also very interesting is, now this is indefinite, Alex Mansky is another 4-star quarterback. He was Iowa State's backup. Go watch a film on Alex Mansky. Tremendous upside. Big kid, 6'3" or so, huge arm. Mechanics are a little wonky. He kind of like throws 3/4 and his foot comes up a little bit. He doesn't get much of his body into it or his hip rotation, but tremendous, big time arm talent. If you get Alex Mansky to come with Rocco Becht, well, then you have your quarterback for 2027. So he's a big time talent. Alex Mansky hasn't played a lot yet because he's young, but you know, the physical tools are there. See what happens with him.
So that's what I was going to say was look for Mansky and what happens there, because there is a possibility. I agree with you, not probable, but there is a possibility that Rocco Becht comes in. It's just a year thing, and you know, Matt Campbell can kind of convince him like, hey, you know, learn the offense. Sit a year, you're going to be in a much better position than transferring someplace else, trying to learn an offense and trying to compete for the job. Listen, you come in, right, Rocco Becht, and then next year you can be the guy type of stuff. I do think that would be some, but if you bring in Mansky, right, I think that's far less, because then he's not just fighting for a starting spot, you know, fighting for the starting spot, but he's also fighting for the backup role as well. And this is nothing to say about D'Anton Grunkemeyer doesn't want to fight for the job or anything. It's just when you have the opportunity to go elsewhere and maybe have a better opportunity there, maybe more, I don't know about the NIL situation, who knows, but that's hard for a player in today's day and age of college football to turn down. Let's switch gears to the other side of the ball. Now, we talked about how D'Anton Lynn coming over. What do you expect from the transfer portal on the defensive side? I think it's pretty strong assumption that there's going to be some Iowa State guys transferring over as well. That whole situation going on there. Do you think it's going to be all Iowa State guys, or how do you think Penn State's going to attack the portal on the defensive side of the ball?
Well, they have to attack the portal regardless, because they have needs that they just need to attack the portal. So there's a good chance, I don't know, offense or defense, that you might see more Iowa State guys than former Penn State guys starting out there. I have heard in total that you could have up to 15 Iowa State guys at least coming, up to 15 on both sides of the ball. And surprisingly, and this just goes to Matt Campbell and his coaching staff's development, these guys are good players. Like, you know, they'll enter college as these like average or low level 3-star guys. And I know some people could care less about the rankings, and this kind of proves obviously they're not a perfect science. But they re-rank these guys. They give them a transfer portal ranking after they've been in college. And they got 2 or 3 guys. There's a guy, Jontez Williams, is their top corner. He's the number 1 corner in the portal. He's the number 1 ranked cornerback in the portal. He's going to command some NIL. Will Penn State get him? They're going to try, but you got just throwing out some names. Jontez Williams, Jeremiah Cooper's a pretty good safety. He's a 4-star ranked guy. They have another guy named Quentin Taylor who's like a high 3-star. So they're the 3 DBs that they have. I know I'm sure they'll get some of them, if not all of them. I don't know about their defensive tackles or defensive ends, but they need defensive tackles and defensive ends. So is, from my understanding, Xavier Gilliam, who would have been Penn State's one main returning, he was kind of, Penn State basically played 3 defensive tackles that were all considered starters. 2 of them were gone from just graduation. Xavier Gilliam would have been going into his 3rd year. He cleaned out his locker. I don't think he officially entered the transfer portal yet, but I do know that he officially cleaned out his locker. Signs are pointing that he's going to be gone. They need D tackles bad. They're talking about some defensive tackles from, all over. But Kansas State is there's a guy from Kansas State, a defensive tackle whose name came up a bit. So they definitely need defensive tackles. At end, it was interesting because Ivan Camacho supposedly was going to clean out his locker, and that there's a report he cleaned out his locker. Ivan Camacho's number 99. He was a true freshman, originally recruited to be a 3-tech defensive tackle, but they put him at end because he's about 250 because he's got the agility and explosiveness and bend to play the edge. And supposedly now he's all Penn State. There's these people on these message boards that follow all the Twitter updates and the social media, what the players are doing. Cooper Cousins, who was this big time young interior lineman for Penn State, is coming back. Owen Allison, who's a really good looking offensive tackle, young offensive tackle for Penn State, replied to Cooper Cousins saying, "Let's do this. Let's roll." So Owen Allison officially is coming back. Now Ivan Camacho is tweeting at those guys like, "Yep, I'm with you. Let's do this." So we got Ivan Camacho coming back. Don't know about Max Granville or Jalen Harvey yet. Max Granville was their number 1 DN recruit coming out. Kid had tremendous explosion. Looked like he was going to be big time. Haven't heard any towards ACL or preseason, so I haven't heard any word on him one way or another if he's coming back. Really hope he does come back. We really got to get a defensive line coach in here. So, I'm sure there's going to be defensive ends that they target in the portal. Even if those guys come back, I'm sure there's going to be some defensive ends that they get in the portal. Linebacker, interesting, kind of the same scenario. As of right now, Amari Cooper and Tony Rojas are 50-50 if they're coming back. They're in negotiations. I don't know what kind of offer they got. They're all over social media, screwing around, dropping different hints and whatnot. But word is that they're really split 50-50. It's really up in the air if they're coming back or not. So and that's huge because there's your 2 starting linebackers. Keon Wiley was a linebacker, younger linebacker, who I actually liked and thought he had some potential. He entered the portal. So they're going to be looking at linebackers. I do believe, I don't know his name, but I know Iowa State's middle linebacker, supposed to be one of their better players on defense, entered the portal. So there's an option there. Like I said, there's supposed to be about up to 15 guys that are coming. Just got to wait and see what happens. 2 very good corners that I think are going to stay. Darius Dixon, Jameer Joseph, both true freshmen. They got to stay. These are really good corners for Penn State. They both started. No, they didn't both start in the bowl, but Darius Dixon started in the bowl game. Jameer Joseph got a lot of run. Both 4 stars, really good players. Terry Smith's still there. Terry Smith is the one that got Darius Dixon to come all the way from California. So hopefully they stay. And then if we get some of these corners that I mentioned from Iowa State, we'll be good at corner. And that's the defensive side of the ball. And, offensive side of the ball, if you want me to roll into that, receivers is going to be really interesting. Kobe Howard is up in the air. He's posted stuff on social media. First he's posted something with a Penn State gear. Then he blacks out his social media where it's nothing. Then he reposts stuff where he's all in Penn State gear again. Then he's reposted himself in practice, running routes and stuff. Kobe Howard's like their best young wide receiver. Obviously, we're going to need tremendous help wide receiver. Pena was okay. He's gone. Hudson sucked. He's gone. Ross was okay. He's gone. So we pretty much got Kobe Howard, and that's it, and a bunch of young guys. Chase Sowell is the highest ranked receiver from Iowa State, just entered the portal today. On 24/7, he's a 93 or 94 4-star. Big receiver. He's like 6'3", 210, put up some good numbers, good young receiver. I know they're going to really target him. Then they have another kid, Elskiston. I forget his name. His last name's like Elskiston or something like that. But they're both like 500, 600 yard guys. I know hopefully they get both of them. I'm sure we'll get that Elskiston kid. Chase Sowell could demand more NIL, but we'll see where that goes. Tight ends, Penn State or Iowa State, similar to Penn State, rocked a lot of tight ends. I do have word, and Andrew Rapulé is coming back for Penn State. That is big. Andrew Rapulé is their best young tight end. He's coming back. Do not expect Luke Reynolds to come back. Luke Reynolds, people had high hopes for him. Kid has a lot of talent, but he didn't want to block. He was like a big receiver, horrible blocker. Rapulé's better. Reynolds is probably gone. And I think Andrew Olish, good chance he's going to go. I complain a lot about NIL, but the one person they paid a lot of NIL to was Andrew Olish. Supposedly, there's rumors they gave him like $1 million NIL deal. And people were complaining that, like, no return on an investment yet. The kid was a true freshman. It's going to take some time. I think the kid has tremendous upside. I do player evaluations. He's one of the best route running tight ends I have ever seen. The kid, he's big, he's fast, but his route running skills are off the charts. Unfortunately, you're probably going to lose him, Reynolds and Andrew Olish. Ben Bramer is the Iowa State tight end. He's an NFL tight end. He is one of the top tight ends in the portal now. He's a 4-star tight end in the portal. And then they have another guy, goes by the last name of Burkle or Gurkle, something like that. That's another tight end in the portal. So I know they'll probably get that Bramer. I heard he's really, really close with Matt Campbell. Good chance they'll probably get the other tight end as well. And it's going to be crazy. This roster is going to be totally flipped upside down. Quentin Martin looked great in the bowl game. Don't know what he's going to do yet. He also said, I got to sit. There's rumors are that he's going to enter the portal. That's not guaranteed, but there were rumors he's going to enter the portal. Even Iowa State's running backs are probably going to come. They got that in the one kid. They're both pretty good, but that what's his name? Carson Hansen is a running back that might come. It's pretty good. So it's a lot going on. Like I said, I'm not exaggerating. You might actually see on one side of the ball more Iowa State guys are just as many Iowa State guys as you do Penn State players in 2026. Just gotta wait and see how it all unfolds. But that's what I got up to date right now for where they're at.
Well, and I mean, you needed something like this to happen. I mean, I don't know if anybody envisioned this type of portal influx from Iowa State, but after the recruiting class kind of had its woes and things went like that, and of course, James Franklin was getting players to come over. We don't need to revisit that whole thing. But after all that happened, you thought, well, maybe we don't need to completely raid Iowa State, but we do need some players from there. And it looks like you're not going to raid Iowa State or anything, but you are going to get some players from there to come on over to Penn State. And I'm excited for it. I mean, Iowa State has competed with Iowa. Do I think that these are the type of players that are going to put you in national championship contention right away? No, but these are the type of players that you bring in and you can remain near or where Penn State was as the top tier or second tier of the Big Ten. And I would say that they'd kind of be fringe top tier if they can bring in some of these guys. Obviously, you'd like to bring back some of these guys like you talked about with Olish and Kobe Howard and stuff like that, because they are young players that I think that Campbell could develop. But we'll just have to see how it goes. Overall, you're setting yourself up well in the portal with having D'Anton Lynn in there. Got to get a defensive line coach as quick as we can. But I'd say that the portal and everything like that is looking like a better situation than it was maybe about a week or two ago.
Oh, it absolutely is. And I feel bad for Iowa State. I really do. Because, I mean, Matt Campbell was everything to them. And, I mean, and they're like – a lot of these lower level teams, anybody that's a good player on like a lower level type of D1 team, you know, they're all going to chase NIL and go somewhere better. But these guys are losing everybody. I mean, they're losing everybody. And as far as like what you're saying with the 26 class, with like losing everybody because, you know, what Franklin did and stuff, we also got a lot of 26, not just the portal guys are separate, but we also got a lot flipped, like a good, I don't know, like 5 or 6 guys from Iowa State that were going to Iowa State. You know, we flipped a couple of defensive backs, flipped a couple offensive linemen that looked pretty good. So, you know, the whole thing with the 26 class is just trying to backfill as much as you could, get some bodies, attack the portal the best you could. And the setup is perfect because, you know, I complained about NIL forever under Franklin. We now have an NFL style GM. Like, we have a setup. We have a GM that is going out, making offers. He's negotiating. They're doing what they're supposed to do. They're identifying what players they want to keep at Penn State. They're bringing them in. They're giving them good offers. They're negotiating, and they're identifying what they want in the portal. They're attacking the portal. They're going to be bringing guys in, and they're going to be offering them good NIL deals. They got $30 million to work with. Okay. And that's good. That's pretty good. That's not maybe Iowa State or 40, 45 million. That's not Oregon, but $30 million, you could build a pretty good roster with it. And they're doing it the right way. They're not paying chumps a ton of money, and they're slotting where they're supposed to slot. So I'm happy with that. Very happy with their GM setup right now.
Love that. Love to hear that. We'll see how it goes. Very excited for the future of Penn State. This edition of D'Anton Lynn, obviously helping out, and Matt Campbell helping the roster out in numerous ways at this point. Chris, you have any final thoughts before we end it here?
Just spend, baby, spend. just go out and get these guys, man. The one last thought I'll say is, you know, it's going to be a bit of a rebuild, but it's supposed to be more of a reload. I look at it more of a reload because Penn State does not have a tough schedule next year. You know, Iowa State was supposed to be really good in 26. They're coming off double-digit wins or whatever, and they had all these guys back. And now their best guys with Penn State's, most of their best guys coming back. Penn State does not play Ohio State next year. They don't play Indiana. They don't play Iowa. Their toughest games, they have Michigan on the road, and they have USC at home in a whiteout. They're their toughest games. Listen, I'm a straight shooter. I'll be straight up and tell you, they do not have a tough schedule next year. So they could realistically finish the season with have a 2-loss type of season. You know, we'll see what happens. I do think the offense is finally going to get clicking. It'll be nice to finally have an semblance of a downfield passing game. Going to be sad to lose Grunkemeyer, but like I said, Rocco Becht will get that offensive going, easy schedule. And, you know, I don't think this is going to be like a 500 type season or anything like close to that next year. I think they could have a good year. A lot of faith in Campbell and his coaching staff.
I as well. I mean, you look at some of the stuff on the schedule. At Washington and at Michigan are probably your 2 toughest games there. USC is obviously a tough game as well, but you have them traveling across the country to you. That's very beneficial. And depending on where that lines
that'll
up,
probably be the whiteout.
Yeah. You might get that game, you know, off USC facing another tough team or something like that. We'll just have to see how it works out. But you only have, 5 road games, and one of those road games is at Temple type of deal. It's in Philadelphia, so it's not, you know, like it's like cross country or anything.
Yeah, no, like I said, it's the schedule sets up perfectly for going through a coaching change or a bit of a rebuild. This is a perfect schedule. It's not murderous row by any means. It's a perfect schedule. And I like these guys. I like this coaching staff. Noah Pauly, the receivers coach, I think he was like the receiver coach of the year in 2024. I mean, he had 2 receivers go over 1,100 yards, 2 receivers. And then you go to 25, they lost these 2-star receivers, and they had some of these younger receivers that are decent, but not what what Higgins and Noah are. And then they went to their tight ends, and they utilized their tight ends, and they won a lot of games with them. So, I'm very excited to see what these guys could do. I think it's going to be a fun time. It's going to be a fun time. Back to offense at Penn State for a change.
Yeah, I don't want to get the Penn State fans, hopes up too much, but honestly, with the way the portal is going and everything else, and if they do get to, or the portal, the way the playoffs are going and everything else, if they do get to 16 teams, I know it's a pretty, weak schedule, but you get 10 wins in that season. You're Penn State, your brand, who you are, and everything else, you're in the playoffs. If you get 10 wins at 16 teams, probably in the playoffs at 12 teams, but we'd have to see for sure.
Yeah, it would depend how other things pan out. If they beat Michigan on the road, or maybe USC at home, beat some ranked teams, you finish with 2 losses, you're probably in. It's so.
And I think Washington's going to be pretty good next year too. So you get a win at Washington and they play well, that could look pretty good too.
I'm going to that game. I can't wait. Just on a little side note, I love national parks. Living on the East Coast where I live, I've been to like the Jersey Shore a million times, Ocean City, Maryland. It's nice and all, but I love going out west of national parks. Like I was at Glacier, I was at Rocky Mountain. So that's going to be an awesome trip. If the game's not scheduled too late, if the parks are, because you got 3 of them. You got Olympia, North Cascades, and Mount Rainier. That's beautiful out there. That's the nicest part of the country, the Pacific Northwest. So I'm looking forward to going out there for a week or so, hitting some national parks, and then seeing Penn State kick Washington's ass out there in Seattle.
There you go. You heard it here first at the Big Ten Huddle. Well, I appreciate everybody listening in. Have a good one. We'll see you next time. See ya.